Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. We open with the Scottish police sergeant Howie attending Sunday Mass. He's engaged to a woman that we never see again and flies a seaplane to a nearby island while investigating a missing girl. Howie received an anonymous letter saying that Rowan hasn't been seen for months, so he visits Summerisle to Scooby-Doo this thing. The uncooperative locals tell him to piss off, but upon learning he's a police officer they send out the aquatic welcome wagon. Howie shows a gaggle of semen the girl's photo, but they all suddenly come down with the same case of amnesia and claim they've never seen her. Fortunately, the letter also said the mother's name, so he walks through town to the woman's post office that doubles as a bakery. Miss Morrison claims the girl in the photo isn't her child, but her daughter is in fact younger and still very much alive. However, she later says that sucking a toad will cure a whooping cough, so the detective thinks that maybe this woman is a liar. He gets a room at the Green Man where the innkeeper MacGregor is known to have the loosest daughter in town. Willow has an entire song dedicated to her that patrons sing about how they stand on attention for the thing between her legs. She seems to revel in it, but Howie says enough of that, I'm a 40-year-old virgin battling temptation, so bring me my dinner and shut up. Unfortunately, the island, famous for its fresh produce, only serves the sergeant tinned food like these little blue beans. Willow says that they export all of their food and don't even have a single apple, so Howie's like, yeah, whatever, and goes to look around. He notices photographs of the island's bountiful harvest featuring a different girl each year, but the last one is missing. MacGregor says that it was broken and they don't keep any negatives, so the detective shouldn't dig further into that piece of evidence. Howie goes wandering around at night and comes across couples having sex openly in cemeteries and performing strange pagan rituals. When trying to get some sleep, he's woken up by Willow busting some young virgin's cherry while the whole bar listens from downstairs. In the morning, the sergeant passes the same man sticking a ring on the town's maypole, signifying that he took a trip to Pound Town. Everyone sings about the pole being a phallic symbol representing a man spreading his seed, but Howie wouldn't know about that. At the schoolhouse, he's mortified to discover the children learning about these pagan rituals from their teacher, Miss Rose. She claims to have never heard of the missing girl, and the whole class has been coached into denying anyone sat at the empty table.
No.
Howie says screw the warrant and pulls out the logbook to discover that Rowan was in fact a student of this class.
Liars.
He calls everybody out, so Rose admits that Rowan is dead and says that her physical form is buried at the old Christian church. She explains they all worship the Celtic gods of their ancestors who believe in reincarnation, so the church has fallen into disarray. The place is protected by snake ejaculate, whatever that means, and he finds the girl's grave in the form of a freshly planted tree. There's a piece of flesh hanging from a branch that the groundskeeper says is Rowan's umbilical cord because all of these people are crazy. Howie then goes to the records room and threatens to arrest the librarian if she doesn't show him all of the death records. They make no mention of Rowan, so he walks over to the chemist's and demands to see the negatives of the harvest photos. He claims to never keep copies, but Howie doesn't trust the literal snake oil salesman who deals in foreskins by the jar. Wanting to exhume the dead girl's body, he needs to get permission, so visits the mayor's estate and passes a Stonehenge outside. Naked women begin frolicking around it, and Lord Summerisle explains that they're learning to conceive children without having sex. Howie calls blasphemy, but Summer says that God is dead on this island where his grandfather migrated to begin growing fruit. He introduced the local population to the old pagan gods, and when the crops produced a sizable harvest, they all began worshipping them. Eventually, the whole island turned to paganism, so the Christian priests fled to mainland, and he gives Howie permission to exhume the body. Inside, he finds the carcass of a hare, so he returns to confront Summerisle and his drinking buddy Rose to say, what the hell is this crap? They continue to play dumb, so Howie believes the girl's murder to be part of a pagan sacrifice that everybody is covering up. He says he'll return to the island to discover the truth with the full force of the law, but Summerisle just politely bids him farewell. Before he leaves, Howie breaks into the chemist and discovers the negatives of each harvest photograph does still exist. The latest one features Rowan standing with a pitiful harvest, which explains why Willow was offering tinned peaches and cream.
You're back, Andy.
Howie goes to the library and learns that if this ever happened, pagan societies would offer the gods a sacrifice to ensure that next year's crops wouldn't fail. He concludes that Rowan is still alive but is being kept hidden until she can be sacrificed at tomorrow's May Day celebrations. Planning to spend one more night at the inn before returning to mainland, Howie is kept up again by Willow banging on the wall. She sings and dances around naked while trying to seduce the sergeant, who struggles to resist the temptation but manages to keep it in his pants. In the morning, she delivers breakfast and says that her legs are always open for Howie, so he tries to get the hell out of this place. The May Day celebrations are about to begin, however he discovers his seaplane has been sabotaged and the radio destroyed. Howie resolves to solving this case himself, so he notifies the mother that he believes her daughter is still alive, but Miss Morrison don't care. She just says that he doesn't know the value of sacrifice, so he goes around and physically searches every home on the island. The bakery uses coffin-shaped pans to bake corpse-shaped bread, and he even walks in on the librarian bathing, but there's no evidence of Rowan. He finds the corpse of an old woman he met earlier missing her hand and some random girl pretending to be dead before running away. Coming across the big guy Oak dressed like a hobby horse, he recognizes it from the pagan ritual, so follows him to a gathering. Summerisle prepares everyone to march down to the beach, so Howie follows MacGregor home and pretends to go to sleep. Willow lights a candle beside Howie's bed, then leaves, but when he looks, it's the severed hand of the dead woman. He ignores whatever that was and knocks out MacGregor to steal his disguise because he's playing a principal character in the May Day parade. Howie joins the rest of the townspeople led by Summerisle in a wig and a dress as they dance with swords towards the beach. They stop at the Stonehenge to perform part of the ritual, where each member is walked through a set of swords in the shape of a sun. It appears like they chop off the head of a young girl, but it's not Rowan, just another student participating in the reenactment. Summerisle then leads them down to the beach for the actual sacrifices, which includes barrels of ale for the ocean god. He then reveals their next sacrifice to be Rowan, so Howie breaks his cover to rescue her and knocks out sideburns. The girl had been kept in a cave the whole time and tells Howie to follow her through it to escape, but they emerge into a trap. Summerisle embraces Rowan and tells her she acted perfectly, then sends her back to her mother, which is why she was never worried. He explains that they needed a sacrifice more substantial than just a virgin girl, so he sent the letter that lured Howie to the island. He's the perfect sacrificial trifecta because he's a virgin who came to the island of his free will and has the power of a king by representing the law. The cult of rabbit worshippers have surrounded their location, and when Howie tries to leave, he's restrained by Oak. Rose says not to worry because he will be reincarnated into a vegetable, then the ladies prepare him by rubbing their hair in his face. They dress him in ceremonial nipple paint and garbs when Howie says that everyone will just turn on Summerisle when the crops fail again next year. The leader is convinced that the pagan gods are real, so he follows through with the sacrifice and leads him to a giant human-shaped basket on a summit.
Oh my God!
It's already filled with animals, and Howie gets stuffed inside while the cult gives praise to the goddess of the harvest and god of the sun. They ask them to accept him, but Howie makes one last plea by saying that God has killed their crops for holding false gods. That remains to be seen for next year, but on this May Day they set the Wicker Man ablaze in hopes that it restores their harvest. Everybody dances around singing old folk songs while Howie recites Bible passages and prays to God for ascension to heaven. He's slowly roasted alive as the last shot shows the sun setting over the collapsing Wicker Man's head. And the movie ends.